Exactly, 8:20 Murima FM, more talk, more music as we start our conversation with our guest today, Mr. Melusi Simelane, Civic Rights Cluster Program Manager from Southern Africa Litigation Center. A very good morning to you, Mr. Melusi Simelane.
Good morning to all, and thank you for having us.
How are you?
Well, we're surviving. We are hearing that Botswana might be getting a couple of planes, so we are worried about what's happening in the region. But look, we're surviving, man.
That's good. I understand that the late of July, Eswatini, received certain people or particular people. Can you just kindly give Botswana a brief synopsis, or kindly just paint or give us a painting so that we can get the context, so that we can understand the story, because not all of Botswana really understand what's happening on the other side of the country, which is Eswatini.
Well, on the 16th of July, a huge plane coming from America landed on our airport in Swaziland, where they were carrying 5 individuals from the United States. Now, you will remember that the United States has been on a drive to deport what they are calling illegal aliens. And so this was part of a deal that was struck between our government and the government of the United States. But to our surprise as citizens, and to the surprise of civil society and parliament alike, this deal was struck in the clock of the night, and no one knew this was going to happen up until we heard from social media pages after the United States Homeland Security announced that this plane had landed in Swaziland and these people had been removed. Now, these are people that the United States said they had been convicted of heinous crimes such that their home countries had refused to take them back. So what has happened ever since is that civil society has been asking questions, hoping that the government would come clean with what had happened, until it got to a point where the head of government, the Prime Minister, went to Parliament and failed to account about this deal. And therefore, as civil society, we've decided that, look, the head of government cannot fail to account to Parliament, particularly when he gets to an international agreement of this nature, an international agreement that has an impact on our political state and an impact on our economy, but over and above that, an impact on our regional relations and SADC. So thought it's about time that we challenged the agreement using our constitution, because our constitution, it dictates and demands that the government, whenever it gets into an agreement, an international agreement, it must get parliamentary scrutiny and parliamentary oversight. But they failed to do that.
I'm interested in the response by the opposition parties. What did they say? I'm interested in the civic society organizations, or in general, for me just to say, I'm interested in the the response of stakeholders.
Well, there was a mixture of responses, obviously, because number one, there was a bit of shock because nobody knew about this deal. Suffice to say, we had been watching in the news that the USA had been sending people to South Sudan, they'd been sending people to El Salvador, to Panama, you name it. And then only to hear on social media that a plane had landed on our airport without us as the people knowing. Now, mind you, these people are being held or incarcerated at our maximum security prison, a prison that is under-resourced, a prison that is overcrowded. And this comes just months after our Human Rights Commission in the country, working with the UNDP, released a draft report that speaks to the situation in our correctional services. And they had come out to say that our correctional services are under-resourced, and therefore government needs to do more. And they had come out to say that our correctional services are overcrowded. Now, this maximum security prison that they are being held in particularly is overcrowded by over 170%, that prison alone. So this was obviously shocking to a lot of us, not surprising to some of us, because this is a government that has constantly flawed the constitution, has constantly flawed the laws of the country. But I think it was time that we challenged them, because again, you will remember that the constitution of Eswatini is celebrating 20 years this year. So we thought it was about time that we put our constitution to the test so that we can strengthen our democracy and strengthen our constitutionalism.
One may wonder, who are your allies right now as you are speaking? Have you reached out to the international community or not? Who's coming forth, who's not coming forth? Because I understand that there are certain other countries, African countries rather, which have welcomed aliens, as they say, or illegal aliens.
Well, it's a difficult conversation because there are human rights implications in these issues too. All so it's quite difficult to have this conversation without sort of blurring the lines, because on the one end you must consider that these are individuals, these are human beings who deserve to be treated with dignity, who deserve to be afforded their human rights. So we have obviously been talking to particularly the Office of a High Commission of Human Rights at the UN level, and we've been engaging with them about torture and cruel treatment, because you will remember that when it comes to people who are incarcerated, we have what is called the Mandela Rules, which is the UN minimum standards on treatment of individuals who are incarcerated. So these are conversations that we've been raising to say, these individuals, we understand that they had served their time in America. So why are they now being incarcerated in Eswatini? Over and above that, they're being incarcerated but the prisons are already overcrowded. Now, we are already, as the Southern Africa litigation, that are having conversations with our SADC Parliamentary Forum around creating a model law that looks at prisons oversight, because we're trying to say our prisons and SADC need to make sure that they align to the Mandela rules. But over and above that, we are trying to make sure that our legislators, our judiciary, and our civil society are constantly checking to see that our prisons are well-resourced and they are being maintained in a way that there's dignity and fair treatment. So our conversation is around the human rights violations. But over and above the human rights violations of being incarcerated, there's the issue that these people could have been kidnapped, because the question begs, were they told that they're being taken out of the United States and being flown to a third-party country? A country that I might even argue that they probably wouldn't have known of, a country called Eswatini, because these are nationals of Cuba, these are nationals of Yemen, and these are nationals of Vietnam, Jamaica, and Laos. So the question is, if the United States was going to be deporting them, why not send them to their countries? Why send them to a third-party country? So these are all of the conversations that we are raising with the UN bodies. And indeed, we are raising it, of course, with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, of course, because these are planes that have landed on African soil. And we're hearing that there will be more landing in Rwanda. We are hearing that some landed in South Sudan. And there are already rumors that some countries in the region are purported to have struck deals with the United States, and these are conversations that we all collectively must have to say the Southern African region, and in fact the African continent, must not be used as a dumping ground for unresolved political issues of the global north, because this is what looks like neocolonialism as far as we are concerned.
Mr. Melusi, I'm very much interested in the response of the government. I understand that you're trying to hold them accountable to what occurred. My curiosity or my anxiety is on how they responded in regards to you trying to hold them accountable for their deeds. How are they responding?
Well, we are fortunate enough because we are going to court tomorrow, because we filed an urgent application last Friday where we were actually challenging the Prime Minister. But also we were challenging the Minister of International Relations, because the Prime Minister, when it comes to foreign issues, he works with his foreign office. And we were also challenging our Home Affairs Minister in as far as the immigration laws are concerned, because these people were allowed entry into the country. But the question that we are raising with the Prime Minister in our court papers is that how come he got into an agreement without parliamentary oversight, number one? But number two, how come this agreement, whatever it is, and if indeed it does exist, it has been declared to the public? You will remember that our constitution, particularly section 236, it says whatever foreign policy position the government must take, it must be informed by national interest. But as citizens, how are we going to be aware of this national interest if we do not know the details of this agreement? But over and above that, if you go to section 8, which is what they have breached, it says that whatever international agreement, it requires parliamentary oversight, because parliament must ratify it. But the government went ahead and struck this deal with the United States without consulting parliament. So that is what we're asking the court to deal with. We're asking the court to declare this agreement, whatever it is, invalid and unconstitutional. But over and above that, we're asking the court that it compels government to at least give us the details of this deal. Because who is to say to all that this agreement between the government of Swatini and the United States, it's not good for the people of Swaziland? Maybe it is good for the people of Swaziland, but we will never know until this deal is being put to the public. It's about accountability, it's about open governance. So obviously the government is pushing back, arguing that this is a high level, this is a high stakes level agreement, but we disagree because our constitution is clear. They needed parliamentary oversight and they didn't get it.
Civic Rights Cluster Program Manager, Mr. Melusi Simelane, very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Right, so